Hello, everyone. We are here with Ruby Powers and Powers Law Group. Today, we're going to talk about what is an I-601A waiver, provisional waiver. Ruby is a board-certified immigration and nationality attorney. We're also here with Powers Law Group. The law firm is almost 13 years old, and we are reaching out the point to our next anniversary. So welcome, Ruby. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, our 13th anniversary is just around the corner. So this is the I-601A waiver. What does it require? What are the processing times? What are some of the things to consider? So this is called the provisional waiver. So I remember this almost like it was yesterday, even though it was about 9 years ago, because I did a lot of waivers at the time before this was invented, and people had to leave the country and be out for maybe 1 or 2 years. There was a pilot program in Juarez for Mexican clients, and they were maybe out for a couple of months, but still most people didn't want to do this process. Now, let's just go back in time. What are we talking about? Well, back in 1996, there was this law called IRA, and it created unlawful presence before it didn't exist. And this became in effect on April 1st, 1997. So whenever you have a consult with me or you talk to a lawyer who's talking to you about unlawful presence, they want to know dates. Why do they want to know dates? Because they have to calculate things based off of April 1st, 1997. So if an individual overstayed their visa less than 6 months after April 1st, 1997, and then they leave, they don't have a bar at that point, but it could affect them later on cumulatively. If they overstay more than 6 months, but less than a year, and they leave, then they're going to have a 3-year bar. If they stay over a year unlawfully and they leave, then they're going to have a 10-year bar. So the thing is that for a lot of clients, they entered one time illegally, and then later on, they build a life here. They might marry a U.S. citizen, American kids, and then want to figure out how to get their papers solved and find their status here. And this is a very common way to do it. So it was introduced in, so what they would have to do is they would do most of the process here, and then they would have to leave and file the waiver, the I-601, outside of the country. And then people would have to wait 1 or 2 years. And then there was this whole limbo, whether it was going to get approved or not. Well, a lot of advisors under Obama said, hey, I have an idea. For really clean, squeaky clean cases where they only have unlawful presence, that's the only problem they have. Well, how about we do this thing where they could submit their waiver here in the country, and then they'll know if it was provisionally approved. And the reason why they say provisionally approved is because when you leave the country and go to the consulate, you still have to be reviewed to see if you have any other inadmissibilities. If you have any other inadmissibilities, then they'll ding you and say you need to get waivers for all those things. And then this provisional waiver is basically gone. So that's why it has to be the key. I teach this at a law school. I teach these to attorneys. The key is screening. You got to screen and make sure you're eligible. So anyway, great timing. It was introduced in 2013 and just keeps expanding. So it allows them to leave and know whether or not that waiver was provisionally approved or not. And it's been successful. It was even expanded a few years after it came out. So the expanded requires that a legal permanent resident or U.S. citizen, parent or spouse, remember, parent or spouse, not children, whom is considered your qualifying relative. So your qualifying relative is very more narrow. So maybe you could have a U.S. citizen child petition for you for the I-130, but you're going to need a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident, spouse or parent to be your qualifying relative. You need to prove that they're financial, emotional, medical, mentally hardship, whether or not you will be separated from each other in the absence, or that they cannot relocate to your home country. So you just have to prove one or the other. You had to prove both. Now you just have to prove one or the other. And again, children do not qualify as qualifying relatives. You can use them as like indirect hardship, but you need to have a qualifying relative to move forward. So everybody asks, do I have to leave the country to do this? Yes, you do. And I'm sorry, but you do. But what I will tell you is that a lot of our clients that are screened properly, listen to us, tell us the truth about everything, and we move forward in communication, They're not outside of the US for very long. In fact, most of them are out for only a couple of weeks, usually maximum, unless they turn it into a trip and go enjoy seeing some family and for just a short bit before they get back into the country. So it does require you to leave, but it's not for very long. In fact, it can be very short as long as you time it with the with your medical and when the appointment is, and double checking holidays, weekends, and things like that. So now when we do intakes and screenings, we're asking lots of questions. Did you ever encounter immigration anywhere? Were you detained, fingerprinted? Have you ever done a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request? And we've talked about FOIAs and we've got some videos on that. But those are key, those are critical. Because we don't get to just Google your record. You know, this is how we have to do through FOIAs. Did you give your real name? Did you ever have public benefits? That's public benefits, not a big deal anymore. But there was a fear at different points under Trump administration. Did anybody serve in the military? You know, that might help us get another form of relief that we could use instead of this one. Does anybody have tattoos? How did you enter the country? Did anybody else come in with you? So these are types of the questions that we have to ask. And so if we ask these in the consultation, it's not like we're trying to be nosy and we're trying to be mean or assuming worse things about you. It's really just we're trying to find out what's going to happen, you know, what's out there so we can address it, whether it's an issue that's going to be non-negotiable or if we can solve it. So that's the reason why. In fact, if you ever filed an I-130 or something else with somebody else anywhere, on your own, with a notary, anywhere, I don't know, another attorney, please get a copy of your record, because there's a lot of little things in there that can be helpful, and we need to be as consistent as possible and want to make sure that everything was done right. So what does this look like? Well, it can take a while. In fact, right now, even though it's not really 24 to 48 months, it's actually more. It's more like could be 4 years, honestly, at this moment. And the reason why I say that is because the I-601A has actually gone up to 24 months. And that's really what's changed the story here. So the I-130 is the first step, and that can take about a year. The National Visa Center getting the fee bills paid, that's maybe a month or something. The waiver, that's where you have to submit that why you can't live without your qualifying relative and why you can't, they cannot relocate. Right at this moment, recording in November 2022, if you look online, they're taking almost 2.5 years. Now, this is a big issue. I really wish they weren't taking that long. This is insane. They never took that long. At one point, they were taking 3 months. Maybe they were averaging 6 months. Then they got up. But I don't know why they're having to take 2.5 years. I think this is, USCIS is probably putting the least amount of priority on these. But unfortunately, this is like the only way, fortunately, unfortunately, is the only way for a lot of people to get their legal permanent residency if they entered illegally. Then after that, so we usually wait for the waiver to get approved before we do the MVC submission of the documents, because we don't want those documents to get too old and have to redo the work. Passports can expire, lots of different I-64 documents, taxes can get old. So, and then we're waiting for the visa appointment. Now, I'll just say, at this time of recording, we haven't had a lot of appointments in Juarez. I think things have sort of slowed down due to issues there, but generally, when there weren't some issues that were of recent times, my clients were pretty safe. They would just, the consulate, the medical exam, and the biometrics are all within like a half mile of each other, actually even less, I think. I've had a tour, and they're just so close to each other, and most people either stay at one of the homes that are set up for this type of situation or at a hotel, and they don't leave other than going to these appointments. So this is generally the process, and that was explaining Juarez, but for the most part, this can happen all around the world that has an open embassy consulate. So so let's just say that the I-601A, this is the form. This is only for unlawful presence. It's not for misrepresentation or fraud. It's not for crimes. It's not for anything else. I-601A is the provisional waiver. Now the filing fee is $630, and that's and there's a biometrics fee. And so you can pay with credit card or with a money order or check. And I will say, so this is one other thing, the I-601A is less expensive than the I-601. The I-601, I believe, is like 930 or something like that. And you need to note the biometrics depending on the age. Now, we're going fast through this, so we just wanted to give you an idea that this exists. But the thing is in the screening process, we double check to see maybe you're eligible for something else. Maybe you have a child in the military and you could do military parole in place. Maybe somebody petitioned for you back in the day before April 30th, 2001, and you're 245I eligible. Maybe you're U visa applicant or could be one and you didn't know it. Maybe you're eligible for VAWA, cancellation removal, asylum registry. Maybe there'll be reform. But the thing is, you want to screen. And honestly, I find that a lot of people are sort of afraid to talk about this because it's so important and it affects their lives so much that sometimes they're afraid. And, you know, fear is a paralysis, and you just have to sort of go head on that. You need to find out that information and that knowledge is power. And, you know, I'll tell you, I remember back a decade ago when DACA came out, what I loved about that, besides giving people opportunity, was that people came out of the woodwork and had consultations with experienced immigration attorneys, and they found out some of them had been eligible for something for a long time, but they didn't know it. And so what I would say to you is, if this looks like you qualify potentially, have a consult with an experienced immigration attorney. Make sure they're asking these key questions, screen, and also see, is there something else you might be eligible for? There could be. In fact, there's new programs coming out. Sometimes it's not really well advertised, and there might be something that's more appropriate for you. So we're findable, we're reachable, right? Ileana, like, people can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram. We even have a newsletter that you send out in English and Spanish every other week. Twitter, Facebook, I don't know, TikTok. You can find us lots of different ways. And yeah, and this is the last one for October, even though we recorded it in November. Don't tell anybody about that. We got a little behind, but we did have a very busy October, as you can see. And then we're very excited about our November lineup. Everything from defensive asylum, because we're seeing a lot of that now, folks, to more about what to expect about green cards, tips and tricks on how to speed up your immigration case. I think everybody wants to watch that one. And then we're going to go and do some little deep dives on I-751 conditional residency and I-604, the affidavit of support. So November is a fun month because we've got an anniversary, there's Thanksgiving, like the weather gets a little nice over here in Houston. And I mean, I probably have some Phillies clients, but no offense, we're going to be rooting for the Astros over here in Houston where we're based. But so we're watching the World Series. There's a lot of other good things happening. We'll announce as we get them all finalized. So Ileana, anything else I forgot to mention?
Yeah, we also do these webinars on Friday in Spanish. So every version that you get in English, you also get in Spanish. So if you don't get what we're saying or talking about, you get the option to hear it in Spanish. That's right. And you can send it to your friends. And we post this on YouTube. We put reels on Instagram, and we put videos on TikTok. And if you want to find out information, and if there's something you want to hear about, we're always organizing our next lineup of webinars and videos. So just ask us on TikTok or send us a message, call us and tell us. Ileana is the one that schedules our webinars month to month. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.